Benjamin Franklin. Founding father, revolutionary icon, a man whose signature helped create the United States. But here's what most people don't know. Benjamin Franklin started as a proud Englishman, fiercely loyal to the British Empire. And then, everything changed. In 1771, Franklin travelled to Ireland. What he saw there changed him. He saw crushing poverty, starvation, oppression under British rule, and it shook him to his core. This is the untold story of how Ireland lit the fire of revolution in Franklin's heart and helped shape the birth of America. Before his awakening, Franklin was Britain's biggest fan. Born in Boston in 1706 to English parents, Franklin grew up calling Britain the mother country. By the mid-18th century, he was living in London, serving as a colonial representative, hoping to negotiate fairer treatment for the colonies. He believed in the empire. He thought the colonies and Britain could thrive together. In his letters, Franklin even praised Britain's culture, science and government. Independence wasn't even on his mind. But in 1771, Franklin visited Ireland, and reality hit him like a thunderbolt. Ireland was one of the richest lands in Europe, yet the Irish people lived in staggering poverty. Entire families starved, while British landlords exported grain and livestock for profit. In September 1771, Benjamin Franklin stepped ashore at Dunlawgar. He described it to a friend as a sinkhole of filth, a jarring first impression that set a grim tone for what lay ahead. From there, Franklin moved into the heart of Ireland by visiting Dublin. He was struck by a brutal contrast. The city itself was magnificent, yet surrounding that beauty lay general extreme poverty among the lower people. He detailed in a letter to Thomas Cushing, "They live in wretched hovels of mud and straw, are clothed in rags and subsist chiefly on potatoes. Our New England farmers of the poorest sort, in regard to the enjoyment of all the comforts of life, are princes when compared to them." Franklin's grief for the Irish, so close in geography yet suffering so profoundly, began to crystallize into indignation. He was invited into Dublin Castle, the seat of British administration in Ireland, where the stark opulence of empire stood in sharp contrast to the deprivation just beyond its walls. Perhaps most symbolically impactful was Franklin's reception at the Irish Parliament. He was honoured not by watching from the gallery, but by being invited to sit among the members of the Commons itself. He recounted how the Speaker proposed his inclusion. The entire House agreed with a unanimous "aye," and he was escorted to a seat, a gesture he interpreted as a mark of respect for our country. Franklin stayed briefly in Hillsborough, at the residence of the Earl of Hillsborough, then Secretary of State for the Colonies. The Earl exemplified polite imperial authority. But Franklin saw the underside of such courtesy and famously reflected, "It is meant only by patting and stroking the horse to make him more patient, while the reins are drawn tighter and the spurs set deeper into his sides." Franklin was horrified. He saw skilled Irish craftsmen banned from selling their goods, their industries, like wool and linen, deliberately strangled by British trade laws designed to protect English manufacturers. A rich country and an industrious people reduced to poverty and misery by the arbitrary power of its rulers. In Dublin, Franklin met members of the Irish Patriot movement, including Henry Grattan and the Volunteers, an armed militia demanding legislative freedom. They told Franklin about the penal laws, how Catholics, the majority, couldn't vote, hold office, own land, or even educate their children freely. Franklin listened, and something clicked. He realized Britain didn't see Ireland or America as partners. They were colonies to be drained, resources to be exploited. For the first time, Franklin saw America's future. Ireland's suffering was a warning of what awaited the colonies if they didn't resist. Franklin left Ireland a changed man. In his private writings, his tone hardened. He warned fellow colonists, "The empire will never treat us as equals." The trip made him rethink everything. While Franklin had once begged Britain for reconciliation, he now began laying the intellectual groundwork for independence. And within a few years, the seeds of rebellion had sprouted. The Boston Tea Party, the First Continental Congress, and Franklin himself becoming one of Britain's fiercest critics. But here's a question history rarely asks. What if Franklin had never set foot in Ireland? Would he have stayed loyal to the crown? Would America's path to independence have slowed or even failed? Imagine an America without Franklin's diplomacy in France, without his signatures on the Declaration and the Constitution. Some historians believe Franklin's Irish journey was one of the key turning points in America's road to revolution. Without it, the story of the United States might have been very different. Franklin saw Ireland not just as a victim but as a mirror. Ireland's oppression became America's prophecy, unless the colonies fought back. This wasn't just about taxes, it wasn't just about tea, it was about dignity, representation and survival. And so when Franklin eventually returned to America, he carried with him not just anger but clarity. The British Empire would never loosen its grip willingly. Freedom would have to be won. Benjamin Franklin entered Ireland as a proud Englishman and left as a revolutionary. One visit, one awakening, and a fire that helped ignite a revolution that changed the world forever. Do you think Franklin would have become a revolutionary without Ireland's influence? Let us know in the comments, and if you love untold history, hit like, subscribe and share.